I feel like after the birth, everyone is so excited and it's all about baby, but the mother also needs to be heard and to have someone like an expert doula there who understands the journey and is supportive, because sometimes family and friends can say the wrong things without meaning to.
That makes so much sense, because I feel like after I had each of my children, it felt like I was born into a different person. Like I was never that same person ever again. I was a new version of myself as this little person's mother.
100%. I say that, like, whether it's baby 1 or baby 5, we are reborn again. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. We are back. This is Babies Down, Bottles Up, and we have quite an episode today. We have an interview with an amazing doula named Kristin. Thank you so much for coming. We're so happy to have you, and we're so excited to hear everything that you have to say.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to chat tonight.
Well, before we get too excited, Keisha had her birthday massage and facial today. How was it?
It was nice. It's been a week. My caseload at work is starting to increase. And oh my God, yesterday I had a praying mantis on my cheek in my office.
What?
Oh, yes. This is a nightmare.
But I think that's good luck.
Is it?
I asked Siri and she said it could be good luck or bad luck. So,
gosh.
I don't know, but I don't know where it came from. I thought it was my hair. I didn't even know what a praying mantis was. I had to look it up on Google.
Okay, I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to be the only one. Y'all acting like y'all knew what that was. So.
I still don't really understand.
Is it a spider?
It's like I don't know. It's an insect. It's a carnivore.
It eats other insects.
Yeah,
they're good for your garden.
Michigan. I think they're cute.
Okay.
They look like a little stick, and
it was so gross.
And they put their hands together in prayer.
Like they're praying.
Cute.
Oh, yeah. No.
I don't want that
on my cheek. No. I thought it was my hair, and I was like, what is going on? And so the next thing I know, I'm like, oh my God, that is not my hair. And I flung it off. And I have an AmeriCorps intern that's interning with me this school year. And he's like, oh, it's a praying mantis. And I was like, what the hell is that? And so then I'm like, kill it. And he goes, no, I'm going to take it outside. And I was like, whatever, just get it away from me. So anyways, back to the spa. So it was much needed. After being
definitely
by a praying mantis. Yeah, it was much needed. And I fell asleep during my facial. So
that's good.
Yeah,
I guess they were doing a good job.
And then I came home and fell asleep again. So it was relaxing, to say the least. So yeah, thanks guys. Y'all, they bought it for my birthday, and I have the best friends ever because they really care about my well-being. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I'm like a month late, but it's done. And I think I'm going to make it a normal thing. I'm going to go back in November. So it's
yes.
And I do want to do some fact checking here. Praying mantis is actually a sign of good luck. And by killing the insect, luck turns against you, is what this one article says.
Oh, no.
But the thing that makes me laugh the most is that the main thing is that it depends on culture. It depends on whether it's good or bad luck, depending on culture.
Well, yesterday was Friday the 13th, so
it was. Oh, my God.
All the way.
Oh,
that is bananas.
No, thank you.
But he was saved. I mean, the mantis was saved, taken out. So I think the fortune is good.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
I'm glad y'all didn't kill it. Oof.
Oh, yeah. Well, if it was up to me, it would have been dead. So,
on that note,
I don't know if you have subscribed yet to our Patreon, but it's getting very popular. So if you haven't subscribed, I suggest you get on it. It's $5 a month. It's definitely worth $5. I think it's actually worth more than that because you get all the juicy content that you don't get in our main feed. So if you haven't subscribed, go subscribe at patreon.com It's Babies Down, Bottles Up. You can pay your $5 and it'll charge you on the same day every month. And if you haven't subscribed to any of our socials, they'll be in the show notes, but we're pretty much everywhere: Facebook, TikTok, X/Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Babies Down, Bottles Up. There's a lot of different variations, but for the most part, it's Babies Down, Bottles Up. So go follow us, subscribe, like, share, comment, tell your mom, dad, sister, all of them, and make sure you don't miss out on any of our good content that we have.
So we know that Keisha Day drank today at her massage, but who else is drinking? Taryn?
Yes, I'm drinking. I decided today to bring back Sexy Whitney.
Let's
like
go!
It had been a while.
Me drinking vodka too, girl. What's up?
Me too.
Yay!
Sexy
We
Whitney,
all
me
hit vodka
too.
tonight. That's
Yeah,
fire.
I guess
So-
we were in a mood.
In case y'all didn't hear, and in case you don't know what a Sexy Whitney is, it is sparkling rosé with a shot of Pink Whitney vodka, and it is perfection.
Ooh.
Yes, so I'm drinking also an Amsterdam vodka, but mine is the pineapple with some Sprite.
Nice.
Wow, you know I'm allergic to pineapple. How could you do me like
I'm
that?
sorry, but I almost got the Pink Whitney though.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Well,
saving
you know.
it for when y'all are in town.
Okay.
I'm doing the Pink Whitney with a raspberry lemonade.
Stop it. No,
Let's go.
really? That is
Yeah.
so cool.
Danny?
Oh,
Oh,
that's my
vodka
go-to.
cranberry.
Simple, yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
Nice. We're on brand today.
So we are so excited to have Kristin here today. She is a doula, a business owner, an author. Her book Supported Your Guide to Birth and Baby. She is the founder of Gold Coast Doulas. They work with women during pregnancy, lactation, postpartum, women with all abilities. And we are so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started supporting women during pregnancy and after and all of that?
Sure, Taryn. Yeah, I had kids late in life, and my background is actually in advertising sales, a bit of public relations, and then political and nonprofit sales. So I was, with my first pregnancy, working on a governor's campaign and was busy traveling the state, fundraising, and many of my friends had kids earlier in life, and I had a stepdaughter who was 7 at the time. And I just had no idea about all of the things that I would need to achieve the goals that I had for myself in pregnancy, birth, and in that maternity leave space. And so I asked friends, and most of the information I got from them was a bit outdated. So I ended up changing from an OB to a certified nurse midwife, working in the hospital system still, took a childbirth class with my husband, Lamaze. And at the time, I didn't know what doulas were. My daughter's now 13. And so I could have certainly used a doula, but I had a pretty easy, simple pregnancy, even with that advanced maternal age, designation. And then at 37 weeks, things changed. And I ended up with preeclampsia and bed rest and was induced at 39 weeks due to some of my organs were not handling the preeclampsia well. And so I was panicking. I didn't want to have a surgical birth. And everything that I had prepared for, wanting a fully unmedicated birth and to experience labor, changed with that induction. And I certainly, my husband was an amazing support. I'm glad we took the childbirth class together. And the midwife that I saw in my pregnancy was not the one at my delivery. So I, had some great nurses, but we felt like we were overwhelmed and alone with the induction process. And so I had back labor and my daughter finally turned, but she wasn't responding well on the monitors. There was always talk of a cesarean. And I was able to avoid most interventions other than having a cervical ripener. And so I never had Pitocin or an epidural, but I was very close to having that surgical birth. So my daughter came very quickly, and then she ended up in the NICU for 4 days due to glucose issues. She was small at 6 pounds. And so I was able to attempt breastfeeding and bond with her. But then, all of the thoughts that first time moms have of rooming in with their baby and bonding. And I, had that taken from me a bit. And I was fortunate again to not have a baby in the NICU for 5 or 7 weeks. And so, but I still developed a lot of empathy for the individual situations that I had, and really wanted to serve others. So I had some struggles with breastfeeding because she was given an IV and then enhanced formula, and I was pumping. So I ended up getting a lot of help from lactation consultants and was able to successfully breastfeed her. And so I became very involved in breastfeeding advocacy at that time, and then had my kids pretty close in age. They're 21 months apart. And so, my midwife had suggested I try to, after that year point, consider getting pregnant again due to, again, that preeclampsia and my age. And so I was fortunate even with breastfeeding to get pregnant pretty quickly. And so that pregnancy was much different. I hired doulas that time around and saw a lot of additional experts like a functional medicine doctor and a naturopath, and really tried to make sure that I was not deficient in any minerals and had a team of support. In my community did not have anything like Gold Coast Doulas. I was doing a lot of research on my own and building my team. And so I had wanted things to be like one-stop, non-medical for families. So after I had my son, and his birth was very quick and easy, no interventions. And my only concern with him was he had a tongue tie. So I again sought help from experts and had that revised from the doctor. And so, other than that and some hemorrhaging during labor, I didn't have any major concerns. So I wanted to start my journey by teaching breastfeeding, childbirth, classes that included a touch of breastfeeding, but for families, especially couples, to prepare for the journey, no matter how they choose to deliver. And so I got trained and took my whole family to Virginia and started promoting my class before my training. And then my students wanted me to support them in their labors. And again, I thought this would be a fun hobby and be able to impact people's, early parenting and birth journeys, but I fell in love with it. And so I went through a doula training and took my first client and realized that women's health was more pressing to me than getting women to feel confident raising money and winning elections. Which was my passion before having kids. And we are in a maternal health crisis. Women are dying in childbirth. And I feel like this is my biggest place in the world right now, is to be able to impact as many families as possible. So going from being a solo doula to starting Gold Coast Doulas and having a team of sleep consultants, day and overnight postpartum doulas, birth doulas, educators, lactation consultants, to be able to help families without judgment. We pride ourselves in judgment-free support and meet families where they're at. Some doulas are more specialized in home births or supporting unmedicated, and we support clients who want planned surgical births or plan to formula feed, and all types of feeding, all types of parenting, and all types and locations for birthing.
Wow,
that's awesome.
I want you to be my best friend.
Let's hang out.
I also have a daughter. She's turning 14 tomorrow.
Oh, what a fun age, but also can be a little bit dramatic for girls.
A little bit. I also had a NICU baby. My second child was born at 31 weeks. And you're so correct when you talk about the breastfeeding, especially for NICU mamas, just because we can't latch our babies during those times when they are not well enough or they're not, gaining enough weight. And it's so difficult to be able to pump and understand what's normal and what's maybe you need a little bit more support on. So that child is 11, and I felt like maybe there wasn't as much support as there could have been during that journey.
Yes.
I just wanted to say about like breastfeeding in general, the lactation when you're like a new parent and things like that, like you can have a lot of support, but especially for blind women, I feel like sometimes it's really hard because they don't know how to help you in the correct way. Like I remember them always saying like, oh, lead your nipple towards their nose. Well, as a blind person, that's not really going to work.
No.
Like you need to be able to feel where your baby's mouth is and also be able to guide your nipple to the mouth at the right moment. You know how that goes?
Yes.
Yeah. And so like I think little things like that like make such a huge difference in how successful your lactation journey ends up being too. And like it's hard because people don't really know how to help people with certain disabilities in doing those things.
Right.
I agree. I had so I breastfed my daughter, not my son. I tried to breastfeed my son, but just not having the proper education about it, and we were just not clicking. But I feel like I wasn't really instructed well on how to breastfeed, and by time like I was still trying, he was already over it. My daughter, on the other hand, that's a whole nother story. We breastfed for 23 months, and I had a doula
for you
for her birth, and it was so different. And if I ever had any more kids, I would definitely have a doula again. So
I love that.
Yeah, I could tell the difference between the births for sure.
Same.
Kristin, can you explain like what a doula is or what services that you provide? If someone were to call you and hire you right now, what could they expect?
Yes. So there are many types of doulas, and I talk about this in the book that I co-authored, Supported Your Guide to Birth and Baby. So there are everything from antepartum bed rest doulas that help with sibling care and household tasks and preparing for, say, breastfeeding education at home in advance of the birth, or a childbirth class, whatever that mother and family needs. And then there are birth doulas. That's the most common type of doula. And birth doulas support families through pregnancy and during labor and immediately after the birth. And then usually provide a follow-up visit or two to again give resources, answer questions about feeding or newborn care or sleep, and also process the birth. There's a lot emotionally, even if a birth had the desired outcome and minimal interventions, it's still a process. And I feel like after the birth, everyone is so excited and it's all about baby, but the mother also needs to be heard and to have someone like an expert doula there who understands the journey and is supportive, because sometimes family and friends can say the wrong things without meaning to.
That makes so much sense because I feel like after I had each of my children, it felt like I was born into a different person. Like I was never that same person ever again. I was a new version of myself as this little person's mother.
100%. I say that, like, whether it's baby 1 or baby 5, we are reborn again. Yeah, I am all about that. And birth doulas do take on different roles based on what a family's goals are. So some of the births that I attend are very physical, whether a client has an epidural or an unmedicated birth, with different positions and movement. And also we do hands-on labor massage and hip squeezes and counter pressure, and can show the partner how to utilize some of those techniques. And then a doula can be a coach type of emotional role and support the partner or, any other family members or friends who may be involved in the labor, and work as a team with the provider and the nurse. And we also can give information. So certainly if we understand what the hospital policies and procedures are, what is normal in labor, just different options if something is not emergent, that you can ask questions and feel like you're making informed decisions rather than birth just happening to you. So we can slow it down and allow you to ask the questions you need to make the best decision for not only yourself, but also for your baby or babies.
Yeah, I have a question because with my second baby, I had her in a hospital, and I remember very specifically that I didn't want to give birth laying on my back. Like I really wanted to like squat or even just be on all fours.
Yeah,
and they absolutely didn't let me. And I think that I probably would have benefited from a doula, because you think that they would it help me like advocate for myself in that moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We never want to speak for our clients, but we can help with the advocacy role. And, we certainly are there. The continuous support of a doula has shown to not only improve outcomes, but also increase satisfaction. So doulas can help our clients get into different positions. If an epidural is placed, we work with the nurse in order to change positions. But I've had clients with great feeling in their legs use a squat bar or do hands and knees with an epidural. It's not just unmedicated birthers who have options to labor and deliver in different positions. But honestly, some providers are comfortable with your standard birthing positions, which is typically what you see in movies where you're leaning forward, you're on your back, and they may not be comfortable with, say, hands and knees or squatting.
Well, I walked away from that experience feeling like the reason why they didn't let me do it was because of my disability, and they probably thought I was a liability. Moving around, because I wasn't medicated. I didn't have an epidural or anything. Like I was free to move, and they just didn't let me. And because because my birth was so fast, like I didn't have, you're in such a vulnerable spot. You don't really have the time, or like,
how do you advocate for yourself during those transition contractions? Right? Just even to breathe during all of that is overwhelming.
I definitely can tell the difference between my two births. With my son, I couldn't do anything. I was medicated. I couldn't do anything. They wouldn't let me get out of the bed. They actually talked me into getting an epidural. But with my daughter, I had a midwife. Unfortunately, she didn't do my birth. My daughter couldn't wait for her. But I had my doula there, and she was giving me massages, and she was like giving me a cold towel, and she was helping me advocate for myself. And she gave me kind of confidence to speak up for myself, even though I was having those contractions. My daughter was actually, I was telling them that I was ready to push her out, and the OB was like, yeah, okay. it's not time. And it's like, no, I really need to push her out. And they're like, okay. So they put my legs in the stirrups, my feet in the stirrups. And then one push and she was out and the OB wasn't even ready. And I feel like if my doula wasn't there to like help give me that support along with my family members, I probably would have just listened to them and wouldn't have pushed or advocated for myself, even though your body, but
Right,
having that
we
extra
do.
support there is really helpful.
Yes. And especially, again, as you're in that transition space, you may not be able to advocate for yourself when you're doing the work of labor. And so I'm a big fan, whether you have a doula or not, to come up with birth preferences. It could be a simple checklist that the hospital provides, or having some bullet points. You don't need a 5-page birth plan because most nurses don't have the time to read that. And
I was going to say, do they even read them?
I mean, they try, but I like a 1 to 2-page max birth plan. And the simpler, the better, but advocating in advance for what your goals are, what you want. And if that is trying to labor and birth in different positions, putting that on the birth plan, having your provider during those prenatal visits in your pregnancy be on board with that, even if it's a big practice of midwives or doctors and your provider's not there, then this is something that's been approved in advance by your provider. Mm-hmm. So the other members of the practice will be more likely to go along with the wishes of your primary physician or midwife. And so again, whatever your individual goals are, avoiding certain interventions if at all possible, or that, hospitals in my area have that immediate skin to skin time and are baby friendly, but not all hospitals are, follow those policies. So delaying some of the newborn procedures, for example, and focusing on bonding might be something that would be important to put in a birth plan. But I'm a big fan of those, especially because the nurse doesn't know how to support you. So giving them a guide will certainly be helpful.
I was hearing that you all support women often who would prefer to give birth unmedicated or without pain medication. What are some tips and tricks that you recommend to those women and their partners?
So taking a childbirth class, the more preparation you have in advance, the better, and having the partner attend the class. So there, at Gold Coast, one of the classes that we teach is hypnobirthing, and it's very mind-body focused, partner involved. There are relaxation exercises, and the goal of that class is to not only understand the stages of labor, potential interventions, understanding what your body's going through, but also how to, really, as many athletes do, visualize the birth you want, practice with your partner, focus on breathing and relaxation. So we have students that have planned surgical births for medical reasons, take our class, that want an epidural right when they get to the hospital, or want a home birth unmedicated or a hospital birth unmedicated. So I would say certainly for listeners who want to avoid pain medication, taking a childbirth class, doing that preparation in advance will be helpful. And then, of course, having a doula to provide some of that physical support and position changes. And if labor stalls, we know techniques to be able to try to pick labor up without involving an intervention. Doesn't always work, but we try our best. And then also if baby is posterior like my daughter was, or is in a position where they need to turn during labor, then many of us are spinning babies trained or have done body balancing work and are able to help our clients in that way as well.
I was curious, I guess kind of taking a step back a little bit. Are doula services something that is covered by insurance, or is it more something that people come to with private pay?
Great question, Karina. So yes, it is. It depends. So in the last several years, health savings and flex spending accounts have covered not only birth doulas, but also postpartum doulas. So I'm thankful for that.
That's awesome.
And in some states, Michigan is a newer state to accept Medicaid. Medicaid covers birth doulas. And so depending on the state, like Oregon would be a great example. New York is a newer state where a Medicaid benefit would be an option. General insurance does not yet cover doulas, but many employers are adding doulas to their self-funded benefit plans. And at Gold Coast, insurance has been one of my passion projects since I became a doula. And so I have worked on, pitching insurers and helped a construction company in our area with my former business partner to add doulas to their benefits. And so I am really excited about some of these new fertility related benefits that cover doulas, and Carrot would be the biggest one. There's also Maven and Progeny. So depending on your employer, you may have a benefit plan that covers birth and or postpartum doula support.
What a great gift too, if your insurance doesn't cover
right.
having a doula. Like what an amazing gift from a mother or mother-in-law or something that people can pull together to help support during such a vulnerable time.
It's
Listen,
beautiful.
if I could go back and put it on my registry,
Yeah.
right? My doula fund.
Yeah.
How much are your services typically?
It all depends on the location. The larger the city, it's usually more expensive. So I'm in, a mid-sized Midwestern town. So Grand Rapids it varies. I mean, some of the newer doulas might be 400 and some of the more seasoned could be in my area up to 1,500. And in Detroit, it would be much higher, like more, I would say closer to 2,000. Some more experienced doulas might be above that level. So it really depends on where in the US and then what experience level that doula or team of doulas has. So if you look at it long term, it is a minimal investment in having that support and coaching through pregnancy, having someone who is there for you during your labor. I mean, it could be a 2-day birth. And so I always tell my family, I'm like, maybe I'll see you in 2 hours or I'll see you in 2 days. Who knows?
It's definitely worth it. I still talk to my doula, and I was new to the city, and she's definitely a memorable part of my daughter being born here. And so we still keep in touch.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a question.
I cry.
So you mentioned like birth doulas, but is there such a thing as like hiring a doula just for postpartum? And how long would they stay with you?
Yes. Excellent question. And so for postpartum doulas, it depends on the training the doula has. Their scope might be a bit different. So some doula training organizations are very focused on that recovery time and mothering the mother, more of those like first 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks of care. And then many of the doulas in my agency also have an infant care component to their postpartum doula certification. And so we do a lot of newborn care. It's not just focusing on the mother and feeding. and that bonding and household tasks. But we get into newborn care, and I do have some newborn care specialists on my team. I also happen to be one. It's a different training, used to be known as baby nurse, but is now an official designation of NCS, or newborn care specialist. So
okay.
yeah, so postpartum doulas that have infant care or NCS would be working longer. We worked with families at Gold Coast up to a year.
Wow.
And some families have a lot of support initially, or their partner has leave for a couple months, and they bring us on as they're transitioning back to work, or if their partner's traveling. And many families, of course, want help with the newborn immediately.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That just sounds so luxurious. Like,
it is. I mean, sleep.
yeah, I know.
Sleep, yeah.
That's the
sleep.
main thing.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I feel like I feel like now, looking back at it now, I would have benefited from a doula, but I feel like I would have wanted a doula more postpartum than leading up to the birth and during birth, honestly.
Exactly.
That's the most time when I needed the most support, was immediately after.
I think
Yeah.
it depends on the person too, because when you mentioned antepartum doulas, I experienced premature preterm rupture of membranes with my second baby, which in layman terms, that just means my water broke really early and I was not in labor. So my water broke when I was 30 weeks pregnant, and I was on bed rest for almost 2 weeks in the hospital.
That's rough.
And yeah, it's just like wrapping your mind around being on bed rest in the hospital and then knowing that you will deliver a premature baby,
Yeah.
and that they are going to have to spend some amount of time in the NICU. That was just so mentally so difficult to wrap my head around, and being excited to be giving birth, but also terrified because you're not going to get to spend that time with your baby. They're going to take your baby right away.
Right.
And I think it would have been really beneficial to have someone just to explain to me what I was feeling was normal, and just help during that time, because it was so difficult. And being away from my older kiddo too.
Of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we do bed rest work, not only at home, but also meet our clients who are in the hospital. And so, as you mentioned, there's so many just different things going through the mind, so many plans to make for the NICU stay, or even getting a childcare plan together and a feeding plan, like just having a solid birth plan that the doula can help you come up with, even if it's a planned surgical birth, can be helpful, because there's so many different things you can do. I feel like all of the different types of doulas are fantastic, but I'm personally most passionate about that after baby support and how we can help families, whether it's baby 1 or 5, and varying abilities, and really helping them feel confident in this change in their life and get sleep. Most of the work we do is overnight support. And so getting families the rest they need so they can care for the babies during the day. And of course, we do daytime support and help in the household, and we can accompany our clients to appointments or, lactation support groups, and are able to be very helpful depending, again, on the individual goals, because everyone's needs are very different.
If I could ask a question, what would you say is the hardest part of the job?
Ooh, birth doula work, being on call.
Oh, I
bet so.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and I have been doing this so long, and I have 27 contractors on my team. Most of my work is to run the agency, but I take certain blocks of the year. I'll always take a repeat client, and I'm pretty busy in the winter with clients. So I'll be having some holiday focused babies potentially between Thanksgiving and the New Year. So we'll see. But
That's awesome.
Those are the Valentine's Day babies.
That means you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, it's beautiful. And I feel like humbling. And I have so much reverence for that space as a birth doula for families. And I feel like medical professionals, it's their job. They, see so many, hundreds of births in a week. And as doulas, we really know our clients, and it's very sacred. I don't want to like necessarily get into this whole spiritual end of it, but for me, it is very spiritual. And
no, it is. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I don't think you really
in a lifetime experience.
Yeah. And I don't think you really, well, at least for me, like I didn't really realize like the whole, like how beautiful it was until like after, and I was holding my baby, and I was like, wow, like I made this. Like I created a whole human, and just like the enormity of that, like I was so overwhelmed.
I still tell my kids, I made you from scratch.
Yes.
Yeah. The rest made me.
From scratch.
Be nice to me.
And gave birth to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Those eyelashes, you're welcome.
Mine.
Right?
Thank you.
That's what I told my daughter yesterday.
I was thinking of something just from a fellow preeclampsia mama. I went through it, both of my pregnancies actually. And I was just thinking, like, is having a doula something that could have helped me through that process, from somebody who had no idea, what I was going to have to do and experience? Like, do doulas go into this kind of like with that knowledge of like how they can best help their clients like work through this? And like, it's a hard experience to go through.
It is. And yeah, I mean, there's just so much risk for the mother. I mean, the only thing that ends the preeclampsia symptoms is to have your baby.
Yes.
And there's the risk of seizure, and so much for the mother, and also their risk for baby. So for me, hiring doulas the second time around and having some early signs that I would potentially get preeclampsia again, and luckily did not, it it helped me so much to have their emotional support and to have plans in place if I had another NICU baby.
Sure.
And the resources they gave me. So our job is to connect our clients with expert resources in the area and or nationally that would be helpful. So understanding certainly signs of preeclampsia, if it's missed, like swelling in the ankles, or talking to the doctor if, my client is telling me they're having frequent headaches, and, there are so many different signs other than the protein in the urine, or like even some of the, seeing the dots and like thinking you're having a migraine.
The vision. Which I always laughed at because I can't see. So they would ask me that question, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
It's a good question.
So
here's the $1 million question.
Okay.
Have you ever worked with a blind client? And if so, how did you handle that?
So at Gold Coast, we have supported clients of various abilities. And so we have worked with blind families. In fact, one couple, both parents were blind, and then one couple,
shout out,
the mother. Yeah. And we've worked with the deaf community and have had disability trainings, because I felt like our basic doula trainings were not preparing us to support families of different abilities. And so we brought the Michigan Disability Coalition into my office, and they trained my team of doulas.
Nice. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that was pre-pandemic. So I have some members of my team that, are newer and haven't had that training. So I'm looking at bringing them back, but we've done a lot of diversity and equity-based work. And one of our more recent trainings was supporting plus size families and how they can advocate for themselves. And so, yes, I feel like there's so much more education that is needed, but we I really focus on continuing education for all of my team of birth and postpartum doulas and sleep consultants. So whenever I see webinars or any sort of virtual trainings on various disabilities, I'm always sending that over to my team, and we're trying to support clients as best we can.
That's amazing. I feel like we have to commend you for that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's commendable.
Not a lot of people think about people with disabilities and how to accommodate them in their services. So, and I think like especially people with disabilities would definitely benefit from a doula, or just having someone that can advocate for them, but also like believes in their ability to be able to parent.
Yes. Yeah, we totally have our clients' backs, and we have worked with families with again, like MS and, without limbs, and to be able to help them feel confident in that caregiving, in the postpartum doula role, and even, clients who have seizures at night and can't care for their infant. And so, yeah, there's just so many different ways that we can be helpful, whether it's bed rest support or hiring a birth doula or having that support in the home. And, as you mentioned earlier, like the breastfeeding support and that hands-on care, or if it's something that's beyond our training, bringing in an international board certified lactation consultant who has even more training to be able to help hands-on and really increase confidence or help with pumping or whatever that might be.
And I don't know if this is still a thing, but when I had my first baby, I received some help from a woman who was training to be a doula, and she needed to attend a certain amount of births before she could be like, I don't know, get her certification or what have you. So she did attend my birth for free. And I don't know if that may be something that people too can look into.
Like doulas in training. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I often see them in different pregnancy groups on Facebook or different mom board rooms. And so like that could be something, or there are different sites where you can find a doula, like Doula Match, where we list our rates on sites like those. So you can see if there's a new doula who's got a sliding scale or is willing to do those certifying births at no cost. And then there are also some nonprofits that are grant funded that provide free community-based doulas to families, either in certain zip codes or that might be considered low income or may have some disabilities, or there would be certain restrictions as far as who can receive the free services. But that is also something. And in some states, there are hospital-based doulas that work for the hospital that would be then a potential. You wouldn't have that relationship through pregnancy, but it certainly would be an advocate who is trained to support you.
My doula was through one of the nonprofits that you were just talking about. And so nice. I actually got to have one for free.
Ooh,
so
love it.
Yeah, it was very beneficial, and it's definitely worth it. I would have paid for it if I had to, just from the experience. It's one like no other. Unfortunately, that nonprofit isn't here in San Antonio anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, but it was definitely a blessing to have. And I just Googled it. So I'm sure if it's in someone's city, they could probably Google it and be able to
in
find
my
it.
area, we have some community-based doulas, and then that are grant funded. And then we also have a nonprofit that is focused on postpartum care. They're not trained or certified postpartum doulas, but they do have basic training to support families after babies there. So they'll clean up, hold baby, support the family emotionally, and bring in volunteers for a couple hours, a couple days a week for, the first month or so. And so there may be postpartum organizations in different areas of the country that your listeners could also check out that are similar to Mom's Bloom in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
With a doula certification, is there like continuing education that is required of you guys, like from your state or like federally, so that like if I hired a doula, I'm not going to have someone who has outdated training and education? Is that a thing?
Great question. So doulas are not nationally board certified the way, say, an IBCLC lactation consultant would be, or a midwife. And so anyone can call themselves a doula technically. And so, but during the pandemic, doulas needed to be certified to work in many hospitals and show proof of certification. So I felt like that upped the level of professionalism. More doulas were starting to get certified. And now with these insurance reimbursements, doulas need to have a legal business and have insurance and be fully certified and do continuing education and continue to renew their certification. So things have certainly changed since I became a doula 11 plus years ago because of insurance. And maybe down the road with Medicaid starting to cover birth doulas, there may be a national board certification and we would sit for an exam and have some different accountability than we do now, but
Sure.
Not every doula who practices is trained by a credentialing organization. They may have chosen to not certify, or they may have chosen to not renew. Many organizations have renewals every 2 to 3 years. Some are lifetime, and it just varies. And so at Gold Coast, since I have doulas from many different training organizations, I wanted to have some similar standards of care so my clients have the same experience, whether they have one doula in their home postpartum or 7 of my doulas in and out. And so my doulas all complete 3 different continuing ed classes a year, plus the ones that I bring to them, and then need to maintain their certification, be certified to work with me, and then also keep up with CPR and first aid certifications. And they've all taken a breastfeeding class and a full childbirth education class to be able to understand how to fully support couples. And the birth doula training is different than the postpartum doula training. So they may have multiple certifications.
Wow. That's awesome. Are you hiring? No.
Always. So I cannot meet the need, honestly, in my area. So I am always hiring. And I love San Antonio, by the way. Yeah, my husband and I had eloped to Austin and had gotten married at a boutique hotel in Austin, but they owned one in San Antonio. So for our anniversary a couple of years ago, we stayed in San Antonio at that hotel, and it's called Hotel Havana.
Nice.
And we did the Riverwalk and had a blast. I just love San Antonio so much.
Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and your book and your company?
Yes. And your podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, and your podcast.
Plug your
all
stuff.
The things. Okay. So first of all, you can find my doula agency, Gold Coast Doulas, at goldcoastdoulas.com, or we're on social. We have Pinterest and we have a YouTube channel, and certainly Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. I honestly don't do as many videos as I should because I know video is big, but I feel like I'm a little too old for it. I don't know.
Oh, never.
You don't sound like it.
No
you
such
definitely
thing.
But yes, so at Gold Coast Doulas on those channels. And then my podcast is Ask the Doulas. We started it in 2017 and we interview experts in the birth and baby field. And so I love it. It's 30 minutes and we have great conversations. So you can check out any of the topics. We have over 250 episodes out and I'm very proud of it. And then our book came out on Mother's Day, so it's still fairly new. So yeah,
Great Mother's Day gift.
for sure. And so Supported Your Guide to Birth and Baby, the website for that is supportedbook.com. And we're in select retail stores, but certainly on Amazon and online booksellers, including bookshop.org. And the book is available in paperback, in Kindle, in hardcover, and audiobook. And my co-author, Alyssa Veneklase, and myself, we narrated the book ourselves at a local studio. And it was so fun, but also a little bit nerve-wracking to sit down and record all day. But we got it done. And so that is also a great option. I consume so many books through audio versions that busy moms.
That experience is odd, right? Sitting in a room just reading out loud is weird.
To yourself, yeah.
And I thought as a podcaster it wouldn't be, but it was really weird.
No, yeah, it's so weird when it's
harder
different.
than you think.
From conversation to just reading.
Yeah.
How do you stay awake? Yeah.
Lots of coffee.
Breaks.
No.
So
Just reading to yourself. Yeah.
yeah, and then having to say words like erythromycin and like the technical birth terms, newborn procedures, and it's like, okay, let's
You're
start
like,
over
I really
here.
wrote this? Yeah.
Right.
That is awesome. Well, if you could send us your links, we'll definitely put them in our show notes so that they can check out all of your content.
Yes, of course. I have all the links ready to go anyway, so we're good.
Oh,
Wonderful.
See, this is why we don't pay you, but yeah.
Say it with an appreciation.
Appreciation. Yeah, there you go.
Kristin, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. This has been super informative, and we just really thank you for all the knowledge and everything that you had to share today. It's been wonderful.
Thanks for having me, Karina. And I had so much fun. I love you all.
Oh,
You're
thank you
amazing.
so much. Thank you for your time. I feel like we were talking to an expert. I was like,
Right?
"Ooh, guys, we got to be professional."
No, it's just
Bottom
me.
line is hire a doula if you can.
Yes.
Ask for it as a gift.
I love it.
Yes.
Please
Put
do.
him on your registry. I'm
Yes.
gonna start that. It's gonna be a
A
We should-
doula fund.
We
Yes.
should do you guys go subscribe to our Patreon so we can give out doula scholarships.
Right.
Beautiful. A doula for you and a doula for you. Be like Oprah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Check under your seats.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
You get a doula.
Yeah.
I'm gonna raffle them out.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you.